Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Kayla Lord.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back. It's been a minute since we sort of told a story about how we do a thing or how we have done a thing. This time we're going to talk about how we've made changes in our power exchange in the past. This is not to say that this is the way that you should do it. It's just to kind of give an example of how it can be done. Possibly, probably, maybe, to get rid of some of the stereotypes and cliches of how we tend to think things either can't be done at all, like, can you really change your power exchange? Yes, you can. Or if you have it in your head that there's only one way to do it, but that way doesn't suit you, maybe our example can help.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that you have to do it the way we did it. We're not even saying our way is the best way.
No, it works for us.
It works for us.
Yeah.
So this is how we do it. So the thing that I was thinking of when we decided we would talk about this today, I was thinking of two things. I was thinking of the biggest change we've made in our dynamic that I can think of, and how that did not change in the way that we've made all the little changes in our relationship. So the big one is that you were not always daddy. I was not always baby girl.
No,
that's not how we started out.
I was sir.
You were. And it's not because I was like, you were definitely sir. It's because that's just what I thought I called the doms in my life. Because that's what I had done before
And
you.
previously, that's what I had been called before you.
Did it feel right to you up until we changed it, or?
It didn't. It did because it's what I have always been familiar with.
So there was a comfort to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet it didn't because something wasn't quite...
It wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
We weren't unhappy.
No.
We weren't sort of like saying, oh, our power exchange doesn't work this way. But yeah, it wasn't quite right. So you had several names for me. Sometimes I was little one.
Yep.
I still get a little giggle at that. Metaphorically, I am little one, okay? Sometimes I was pet.
Yeah.
And then you had like a private little nickname that we still don't even publicize because it is literally just between the two of us.
Yes.
And it was okay. I answered to it. My philosophy was, I don't care what you call me as long as you call me. But weirdly, we changed from that, what I consider kind of a stereotypical dynamic, which might not be stereotype, might just be what feels most common. It's what we see in porn and erotica, a lot of sir and whatever, calling the little s. But we actually made a slow change to the DDLG life. Look, we didn't choose the caregiver life. The caregiver little life chose us.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it started by you calling me something different. Because I became baby girl before you became daddy.
True.
And I don't even remember how that happened.
No.
This particular change that we're talking about was completely organic.
Yeah.
But your change to daddy was the biggest.
Yeah.
So you called me baby girl whenever you called me baby girl, and I embraced it. It immediately felt right.
Right.
No question in my mind. Yes, I am baby girl.
And then you asked me a question one day and said, do you think you could be a daddy dom?
So part of that was because I was learning more about caregiver little dynamics, and I was relating to some but not all of what I was seeing. And when people were writing about how they saw daddy doms, I was like, that's John Brownstone. I mean, almost to a T. The nurturing, the guidance, the playfulness, the happy to punish if I get out of line. The fact that the way you take care of me, I was like, that's a daddy right there. But you can't just be placing labels on folks that don't say they want it. So I asked.
Right, you did.
And what did you do?
Me? That? No, absolutely not.
He's making himself sound way too mature in this moment. I said, do you think you could be a daddy? And he laughed his ass off, y'all. Just cackled. Thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And that's for the discussion. That's kind of where we left it,
Mm-hmm.
because you clearly were not embracing it. It didn't matter to me. I could call you whatever. I mean, I was calling you sir, and that was fine. I hadn't renamed you John Brownstone yet, I don't think.
No, no, no.
So it was mostly just sir or Mr. John, because that's what the kids call you.
Right.
So I was like, okay, it's fine. And then we're having kinky sex one night, and I'm not a person who does a lot of talking during that. I mean, I'll make noise, but
Oh, yeah.
we're not having a conversation. I'm not a dirty talk kind of person. But I got it in my head that I wanted to call you daddy. Like, it just, I don't know what I had read or watched. Something had gotten into my head, and I went, yeah. And I did. Now, it took me a moment. We were going at it hard. I think I was like half hanging off the bed.
You
It was
were.
a wild night. And I just went, you know what? Yeah, yeah. And I don't even remember if I said harder daddy or more daddy or oh yes daddy, but I let daddy slip.
You did.
And that flipped a switch.
It did.
You were a completely different man in that situation.
Yep.
Harder, faster, more intense. I think you growled.
Yeah. It was almost like a primal
It was
thing.
it was a very visceral, gut level reaction response to it. And it was hard for me because I had the urge from the moment everything got hot and great between us in that instance. But I was afraid because I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to like kill the mood here? Is he going to be mad at me? You've already laughed off the idea, but I was like, the urge is so strong. I'm just going to go with it. And it
Right.
was several moments of thinking it and holding back. And then I said it. And then I was like, oh, I should have said that sooner. And we finished the moment. And then it was like in the aftermath, we're cuddling, we're having some water, we're like, whatevering. And I think if I recall, what I said to you was, so, do you think you might be a daddy? do you remember that?
Sort of, yeah. But
Well, yeah,
yeah.
there was the post-orgasm glow there. The blood was still not back to your brain yet.
No.
But from that moment on,
I've
that's
been
what
daddy.
I called you. Yeah. And we did a complete, it's funny because it was a title shift more than a dynamic shift. The elements of who we were, me as a playful baby girl, you as a nurturing dom, never really changed that much.
Well, it kind of was a sort of a little bit of a big shift
you think
because,
so? Okay.
Prior to that, most of my relationships had been high protocol.
Right. And we were still long distance at that point.
Yeah.
And we had certain tasks, rules, routines we had set up just to make our long distance work as a power exchange and feel connected.
Correct.
And we, of course, kept those up because those were still working. I think the real shift into a less high protocol, lots of rules kind of thing happened when we finally moved in together several months later.
Right.
Because then real life hit, and we've talked about that in the past. In past videos, I'll try to link them below. But that was a very organic shift.
It was.
It was a moment of what we were doing was fine.
Kind of in the moment kind of thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
to figure out the new way felt right.
Yes.
But with the moment I became baby girl, I knew that was who I was. The moment you became daddy, clearly that worked.
Who I was, yeah.
The thing is that all shifts aren't going to happen that organically. They're not just going to happen in work. I mean, because there was a very real possibility I could have yelled out daddy and that you could have just shriveled on the vine right there. I'm like, oh, this killed the mood. And that would not have been a great moment.
No.
The rest of the changes we've made, including changing the way our dynamic function when we went from long distance to in person, as big as that, to small changes like, are we going to keep these rules and these routines and these responsibilities, or are we going to shift them? They happen in they're not overly structured, but much more structured than that.
Yeah.
And it's a simple thing, and it's the boring answer. It's the answer we give all the time. It's communication.
Right. I mean, at that point, once we realized that things weren't working the way they had been, which, had a little bit of an inkling that would be the case, but not to the broad.
Do you mean when
way.
we moved?
When we
moved in together?
Yeah. Not in the broad way that things were affected. At that point, that was the start of our coffee date negotiations.
Yes, and we we are constantly talking. If one of us has something on our mind, we will find time or make time or let the other one know, hey, I just want to talk to you about this when we get a quiet moment, because busy lives, it's not always feasible to just talk right when you think of something.
Right.
So we're constantly doing that. But when it comes to sort of big decisions where we both need to give our input, and changing your dynamic requires input from both people, and there's a negotiation process, so to speak, that is when, yes, we will go on a coffee date, sit somewhere relatively quiet, relax, and talk it through.
Yeah. And I think at that time, if I remember correctly, because that was also something kind of new to us, what we did when we did the initial sit down, probably about a month later, we went on another and we sat down and we talked, how do you feel about, and we discussed all the different rules.
The things that we had changed, and sort of debriefed one another.
Right, right. How we felt about it, if anything needed to be changed, and that was from both ends, from her end and my end as well.
And it's not one of those things where you said, this is what we're going to do, and I meekly accept it because I'm a submissive. This is a moment where we are meeting as equals in, these are the things we mutually agreed we would try. How do you feel about them? And it, for me, is a time when I can be sort of my everyday self, the person I am when I'm not with you, where I'm kind of opinionated. And so I, with respect and knowing our dynamic, I say, okay, this is what I like and this is what I don't. This is what interferes with my work life. This is what interferes with the mom life. What can we change? And there, it's a lot more listening and asking questions than it is dictating what the changes are going to be.
Right.
Because the whole purpose is to find a change that suits us both. Which means we can each have an idealized version in our head. Neither of us is getting that. We're going to have to meet in the middle with some level of compromise. Now, you and I are very well suited to one another. We tend to be on the same page about things.
Correct.
The biggest conversation and negotiation we have in any change we make in our dynamic is not what that change will be. We have been on the same page. It's how to get there.
Right.
My being submissive to you taught me a lesson I should have learned 20 years ago, but I was a stubborn person in a bad relationship, which was, there are multiple ways to get to the same outcome. It's why, although I tease about it now, there is no wrong way to load the dishwasher as long as all the dishes get clean. I used to say there was a wrong way to do those things, and now we just tease each other and go, oh, you do that differently than I do. And that's where a lot of the compromise comes in. So if we're going to change, we changed our dynamic, the way we structured our dynamic from long distance to in person. We thought there were going to be a lot of rules. We've talked about this before. We went on about a 2-week break of no DS. I just couldn't handle it. When we came back, it was my job to say, I see this laundry list of rules that we both thought we wanted. Here are the ones I just can't do. It's not going to work. Here are the ones that I think I can do, but here's how I would like to do them instead. So that's another thing that I would suggest, and we often do with each other, is if we agree on what the outcome would be, if I can't do it the way it's been suggested to do it, I come up with my own suggestion of how I could do it. And even then there can still be some back and forth, like, well, I know you would rather sleep till 8 o'clock in the morning, but really things need to get started earlier. And he might go, can you wake up at 5:30? I'm like, I cannot wake up at 5:30, but I can wake up at 6:30. And he's thinking about how that fits with him and how, what I need to do and what he needs to do. And we find that middle ground.
Right.
But most of the changes, other than that first one, to who we are today, are very deliberate.
Yes.
And they take place, if it's a big change, they take place over several weeks. It's not a overnight kind of thing. Small changes, I'm trying to think, there are some things I don't do around the house anymore that I once did. Those changes were, we said, okay, we won't do this anymore. We will do this. I used to cook dinner every night. Right. When you retired from one job and started your own business, you had more time. That was a switch we flipped overnight.
Yes.
There was no long-term whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The new rule I have of you will wash the bed sheets, but I have to fold them. We both get ourselves tangled in them, but I can get myself untangled faster, so I fold sheets.
Yeah.
You wanted them done immediately, and that just, I couldn't make that work.
No.
And so over time we shifted to, as long as I get them done by a certain
time, right.
And those are the things of power exchange that they're not the sexy things. They're not the things that, you know, get the most attention like a kink scene might be. But those are the things that make the relationship and dynamic work day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we do much more deliberate changes with a lot of conversation before we make a change. A back and forth about what we think this needs to be. We're, like I said earlier, normally we're on the same page. Then we try it, and then we come back and give feedback, honest feedback. If something doesn't work, I have to say that's not going to work. And here's why. Because it's important to me, because I want us to be on the same page about things. When something doesn't work, I come with a list of reasons. I can tell you why it's not working. I have analyzed this. I am looking at all the other factors, and I'm making my case for it as a submissive. Because if I'm doing it, it's because you want me to do it.
Yeah. And what I have to do, because this one being the snarky baby girl that she is.
I should have been an attorney. Okay.
All right. I have to look at a potential rule and try and find all the loopholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have gotten better at actually pointing them out, because for me, I want to be the good girl. I want to do what you want me to do, but I'm going to notice when there are exceptions to the rule, and I'm going to ask questions, because that's what I do.
Yeah, it is.
So yes, sometimes the changes are organic because you blurt something out in the moment and it works. And sometimes they are much more deliberate and thorough, and it's a teamwork thing. We have to work together. And the way we look at it is, it's not the path we take to get there, it's the outcome. What is the outcome that we both want?
Right.
And that's what we're striving for. So then it's easier to bend a little on either side to find that middle ground if we're not in complete agreement. My thing I would say to anybody out there is the submissive does not have to be in complete agreement with their dominant at all times. There, quite frankly, should be times when you don't quite agree. Not viciously, not vehemently, not to the point that you are on polar opposite sides of an extreme, but if something doesn't quite work for you and you think it could work better in another way, as a submissive, that's my job to speak up, because I'm actually serving you better by making sure you get the outcome you want in a better way. If I am constantly frazzled and stressed because I'm trying to do something your way and it's not the right way for me to do it, then ultimately resentment builds, the relationship's not as strong.
Right.
I'm a hot mess who can't really function as well as I could.
At that point,
what's the
communication breaks down,
Right.
and you know it's just a big cascading effect.
So kind of the one time where there is no real power imbalance, we are a meeting of equals, is when we're making decisions about our relationship, because technically you are the decider, but I get to consent to something. So if a change is going to be made, I have to make that decision as your equal, and I have to give equal input about what is important, what is not, why this is good, why this won't work, whatever it might be. And that's how we do that. And then it's a little bit of a shift, because once the rule or the task or the routine is in place, then I'm in my submissive mode of getting it done based on what we talked about. But that's how we change things.
Yeah.
One time we did it super organically, and every other time after that we've been very deliberate.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one time worked, but it did.
Yeah.
And it's part of our origin story now. So, that's us. That's us changing stuff in our dynamic. If you have gone through a shift in a dynamic, whether one you're in now or one you were in previously, feel free to comment below and let us know how you did that and how you see that and how you made those changes. And if you have any questions or anything, just comment below. We'd love to chat. But that's it for us. If you enjoyed it, we'd love a thumbs up. If you liked it enough to want more, please consider subscribing.
And when you subscribe, go ahead and ring that bell so you get updates and new content.
Just do what Daddy says. And if you really like this, want to help us keep doing it, get stuff you can't get anywhere else, you can join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/KillerLords. Bye.